All right, today guys, we're going to pull off our ignition rotor. Some people call this a flywheel rotor, rotor on its own, or so on. Basically, it's what houses the magnets, and it also houses the projection, this little raised metal piece here that's going to come across the pickup sensor to tell the spark plug when to fire. So we can never hit this with a hammer. Make sense?
Yeah.
On our lab sheet today, I'm going to ask you about a couple different ways of taking this apart. With a piston in place, my favorite way to get this guy off is to simply use an impact and impact this off. 99.99999% of these are all just standard thread. Okay, so it's nothing nothing that service manual isn't going to warn you about or tell you about. Okay, but this one here doesn't have the piston in here. We know that this is one of our demo motors that we're going to build up. So I need to be able to somehow secure this and then go back to use a normal hand tool. So, or I could use I could use the impact and just hold the rotor. One tool that we were using yesterday on our clutch baskets, and we've used this on sprockets. We also are going to be able to use it on holding this rotor. And this is the thing, Motion Pro again, it's real common. You can see the two holes here. So what I'm going to do is size that up. And the thing I'm going to get you to recommend you to do is go ahead and lightly just tap that in place. Does that make sense? For a way to hold it. If you're working alone, do you see how you could brace this against like the foot peg on the motorcycle if this were installed in the bike as a way to kind of support it? Mm-hmm. What you have to know is those holes aren't very deep, and this thing isn't exactly the best, most secure thing in the world. It's not meant. If that's being stubborn and not wanting to come off there, this could be a bigger problem. But I'm going to go ahead and zap this bolt off here. Make sure I'm going the right way. Okay, no problem, right? And that was tight on there. So now we got to figure out how we can get this off here. You guys remember on our small engines how we took that 2-jaw puller and pulled around to take this off? Mm-hmm. On your guys' lab sheet, I'm asking you if you can ever use these to take off these rotors. This is the question that I'm asking. Okay, because you guys, how many here are car mechanics? Quite a few hands going up back there. It's common for us to take these, try and grab around here. I just grabbed one out of the tool room, but we know they make these in smaller versions, right? Mm-hmm. So people want to grab this, and they're going to pull around the outside, pushing against the crankshaft to pop this off. The thing is, though, when we get this off here, you're going to see that this is hollow in here. There's magnets that are going around an electrical stator, and if we pull on this, this is so attached to this crankshaft that what we'll do is we'll actually fold it in. First one of these I ever tried to take off when I was about 17. I ended up having to take the whole bike to Kawasaki dealers. They laughed and used the right tool. They pulled it off for me in 2 seconds, but I had to buy a new rotor because it was ruined. So here's what you need to know. This is an impossible tool for this. You will absolutely ruin it. Okay? The other thing that we can't do is we can't get in here with screwdrivers and try and pry this off. We're going to break the engine case. This is attached on here on a taper, very strong with a keyway. Now, if we use the right tool, these type of pullers, this is my favorite one for this application, is that it's by K&L Supply. They sell it out of Parts Unlimited or anywhere else. But this has all these different pullers. So I'm going to match up this one. It looks like I have to flip the tool around. But maybe it's one where I use this, maybe I use this. But the reason I like this so much is once I get this installed, I'm going to be able to just kind of hold this. I'm going to be able to whack it with a hammer, and this is going to pull right off, which you'll see in a second here, okay? They do make these kits, which would do the same thing and allow you to use a couple of different wrenches. So I could find the appropriate thread and pitch. I think it's this one here, just guessing. If I back the bolt out here. And what we want to do, if you look inside there, do you see how the bolt has to be all the way recessed? And you'll notice there's already grease on here because we're always on pullers. What are we always doing?
Grease spread in the tip.
Yeah, we're always going to have some grease on there so that we don't do it. Now the tool itself, this is the correct one. It's left-handed. Okay. And then I could hold this with my wrench and tighten this in and it'll pop it off. So this completely works, but I'll show you why I like the 6-in-1.
The threads on the rotor are basically just there to make it removable.
Yes, that's all they're there for. When you took yours apart, did you think something was missing maybe?
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so a cool little kit, had all these different ones. I really like this guy. As a bike shop, this is really just a mandatory tool to have for everything. So let's go ahead and take this. It's kind of cool that we have to flip it. And what I want to do is just make sure that it's not poking through there. And I like to put grease on the threads here as well, as you guys see in your lab sheet, right? So what I want you to do with this one is I want to see this guy all the way bottomed out. And notice, no tools. Okay, I do not need to take and put a wrench on here, okay? If I take and crank that down, then I'm wedging the tool into the flywheel. We've just got enough meat on there that we're going to be able to get this off here. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it like so. Now this is the awkward part for me. I don't know if it's a left-handed thing, but I'm going to hold this here because I don't want it to come flying to the ground here. And you're going to see here that I'm just going to give this a whack. Rubber mallet. I am going to hit the threads here. I'm not going to be able to damage them. And it popped right off. Okay, so now that we have this off, you can see here this long taper and how much meat's on there. If I took this tool and grabbed here, and this doesn't move, do you see how it'll just fold it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to replace these in your career because people tried to take them off wrong. The one tool to take this off, not the 6-in-1. These I think are about $50, but the appropriate one to pull most any rotor out there, they're anywhere from $8 to $20. That's all they are. Okay, they're very affordable now. 10 years ago that wasn't the case, but like at a Parts Unlimited in Tucker, there's multiple people making these pullers. Sometimes the puller becomes a one-time use. Like this one here's damaged. What we're going to do is cut the threads off, re-put a taper on it, and it's going to just keep shrinking. It will get to a point where it'll be non-usable anymore. The moment you damage this, it's going to go really fast for the rest because when this was brand new, it was heat treated. So when I cut that off, I lose that little part of that heat treatment process on there and it just gets weaker and weaker and weaker. But you just have to think of it this way. If it's a $10 or $20 tool, that's just a cost of doing business to do that job. You could incorporate that into a shop supply or something else. Does that make sense? Okay, to finish off through your lab sheet there, on 3A here, we had already removed our clutches. Simple stuff, guys. What must be done to the threads and face of the puller?
Grease.
Should you ever install a 2-jaw?
No.
Once the puller is installed, should you hit the end with a hammer to pop it off?
Rubber hammer.
Oh.
The end.
Oh, no.
Okay, right. A little trick question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we don't want to be banging on it this way, okay? Because we got that crank that's trued in there, okay? We are hitting the tool sideways here to pop it off. We are not sitting and smacking on this. Anytime possible, we try not to sit and bang on there. Some people will never even use an impact taking nuts off because of that impacting that's going on the crankshaft here. I've never had a problem, but it's not to say that you couldn't have a problem, okay? The ideal way to do any of this is to use hand tools like we did here. We use a hand tool and then we use a hand socket and we can pop it off and there's no abuse to the crankshaft at all. Make sense? Okay. So, can you strike the rotor with a hammer? And then I got a question. So it's yes or no?
No.
And why or why not?
It'll demagnetize it.
Yeah, there's a really good chance that we bang around on these. More with a metal hammer than a rubber one, I think. But we could lose the magnetism in the rotor. What company out there even writes on their rotors, do not hit with a hammer?
Riggs and Strait.
Did they? Okay. What about in the motorcycle world?
What was it?
Harley Davidson. All their factory rotors say do not hit with a hammer, so it's a big enough deal. What should you do to the rotor key? So inside here we have this keyway, okay? Once we pull our ignition plate off, we're going to get that keyway. What should we do with the keyway?
Stick it to the magnet.
Okay, that's a way to store it.
Inspect it.
We want to make sure inspect it. Guys, we always talk about a cheap insurance policy. What do I do with my keyways?
Always replace it.
Just make them new. Don't worry about it. Let's see. If you don't take the key out, notice how these questions have resurfaced from other labs. Mm-hmm. If you don't take the key out, when you try to split the cases, what may you damage?
The oil seal.
The oil seal on the crankcase itself. Okay, so that keyway definitely needs to come out. Okay, so then we'll move into this ignition plate. So we're getting ready to take this off. The timing plate here, you guys, we have slotted screws. So anytime we have a slotted screw, what do we know about our ignition?
Timed.
Anytime we have slotted screws, it is adjustable. Ring a bell? Yep. So somebody said they were getting me an 8 mil. Okay. I'm going to go ahead right now. There's somebody's made some marks on here to try and say where this should be. But what I want to do is I want to show you guys that I can move this all around. You can see how far off. A lot of times people say, well, I'll start in the middle or whatnot. In the service manual, there's going to be something. Like, do you see this arrow right here? I'm going to take this bolt out because this is the one with an arrow as a timing indicator. And in this bike, per the service manual, do you see how there's a mark here? So this was not on correctly. Do you see how far the marks are off?
Oh, wow, yeah.
So what this is this is a starting point. And then once the bike is running, we'd hook up a thing around the spark plug wire called a timing light.
You got 2 more marks here.
Somebody made
3.
those.
There's 4.
Yeah, but somebody made those. And you don't need 5 marks on here. You only need 1. But see, this is from Suzuki. Okay? These are from Human.
Right.
Okay? And when we took this apart, it was all the way pushed over, which would mean that it's all the way timed, either retarded or advanced. We have to think about which way we're rotating this. But this line right here is called a, what type of mark is that? Call it base timing. It's just a starting point, so that's your base timing on there, okay? So to keep moving forward with this here, then this is the point you guys are going to get to before we go back and start to do some more theory. I'm going to go ahead and just put all my fasteners on my magnetic rotor here. This is an area we've talked about numerous times too that we want to inspect is our rubber grommet. When I put these back together, I put a little bit of grease, or excuse me, not grease, but silicone around here so that water can't get in here and cause any rust. So our whole timing plate here, on a dirt bike it's pretty simple because the only thing this has to do is fire the ignition system. There's no charging system on this bike, there's no lights, there's no anything. So this is going to energize the primary ignition of the coil, and this is going to tell it when it can release and fall into the secondary and actually spark. Okay? What happens here is as this spins around, this projection comes across this magnet here, and then that's what signals that it's at the right time to go ahead and fire up the ignition. What's the distance called? Because these don't touch each other. These don't touch each other, so there's a space between here and here. And Brian?
Air gap.
It's called air gap. Do you remember how that was adjustable on the small engines?
Yeah.
On your metric bikes, it's very, very rarely ever adjustable. It's keyed, it's dial pinned, and you don't have to worry about it. So this is not adjustable in and out like it was on our small engines. Okay? All right, we have really strong ignitions in these bikes to begin with, and it doesn't wear out to a point like you do on the small engines. So let's take a look here. Here's my crankshaft. And I said that what I need to do is get this keyway out of here and onto the rotor. How do I get that keyway out?
A small punch and hammer.
Yep. Can I get your guys' punch kit, anybody? Michael's right here. I'm going to go ahead and use a rubber mallet. Now, this is another thing. I can't go just beating on this like crazy, or I'm going to be afraid that I'm going to, hurt the crankshaft here. So if it's being really stubborn, I'll just leave it alone and damage the seal. So what I like to do is I hit the backside. Anybody know why?
So that it will push it.
And it just ended up popping out. What I was trying to do is I will hit the backside like so, and then I will come in here and now be able to get underneath it to knock it out. So that's a way to do that. Then once again, in here, magnetized, stored, nice and handy. Life is good. So let's see. On the lab sheet, though, I say, what must be done before removing or loosening the screws of the timing plate? So this guy here, what should you do before removing those screws?
Make note of where the ignition time is.
Yeah, because did you guys notice how this This one here, the one with the actual mark, was covered up by the washer. So I don't know. That's why you'd make a mark somewhere else. Make your own reference mark. You got to make it on the stationary part of the engine and the non-stationary. So this would have been a good one right here, right? Because see how we can move this one, but this one will be solid. Make your own mark and then remove. So make a mark. So what if you say, well, Shane, my ignition plate's non-adjustable. It doesn't have slotted holes. Okay? Do you need to make a mark?
No.
You sure don't, but it's handy if you're an entry-level technician to go ahead and make that mark. So I'm going to use this one right here. I'm going to say that this is my mark. What's nice about that, for you guys that are just starting out, is when you go back together, do you see how there's 3 different holes? You don't have to try and think where the grommet goes with a lot of thought. Now, it seems like it'd be easy to just go, well, it can only go here. But when you're not doing it, it causes you to have to think a lot harder. When you have this mark here and here, it's already going to let you just fall right into place, and you don't have to overthink this too much. I have seen people install these like let's say like this, and tighten everything down and then go, oh crap, and now they've got these torqued, and now they got to take it back apart and then remove it into place. So entry level, as many marks as you can make is nice for you guys.
Also helps it make memory.
Yeah, muscle memory, so that you just mark every single one of them, right, Brian? On track. What are you inspecting for on that grommet that was here on the stator plate?
Any leaks or tears or breaks? Or...
How about that's even present? A lot of dirt bikes, and some of them are down here like this, probably the worst possible place that could be, because do corn stalks and trees and branches go in and hit that rubber and push it in?
Yep.
Okay, a lot of them you'll see will be on the back side, back over here, but this is a good spot up here. Other than that, if it's bad, any rain or mud or anything's going to get in here and collect, because it doesn't have this is a sealed cover. There's no place for that to drain. So you're inspecting it that it's present or that it's tears. What must be done before removing or loosening screws? This is on side cover, remove all the left side case fasteners. So that's these guys. This is the point we're at next. We're going to take, these are cases, right? So we're going to take all of these case bolts out from the left side. Okay, let me see if this makes sense to you, because on the lab sheet, this is what I call it. This is the case, so is this. This whole piece is the left side crankcase. But do you see how these bolts in here are inside of this housing, if you will? I understand it's one piece, but would you say that these are outside and these are inside?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to show you a trick here in a second what I like to do with that. It says, but what must you do before loosening these screws? Any ideas?
Follow your seam.
Okay. This one isn't a great example because it's one that takes a socket. But could you, like on your blaster, could it be full of mud? Mm-hmm. So what should you do with those? If it's got a bunch of mud around there that's dried, is my socket going to be able to fully engage to have the 100% real estate to take it off? Nope. What about for Phillips screws?
No, definitely not.
Definitely not, okay? So guys, I don't like to have to think too hard when not needed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 2 baggies here. Now, this is my tip. Now, hey guys, this is cool. This one I'm going to show you here, you can use on 4 strokes too. And it's really super nice when we do our inline 4-cylinder 4 strokes. So I'm just going to simply do this. I'm going to say left case. Okay? That means the crankcase. That's what it is for me. Now, I have to loosen all of these. I'm gonna go along here and just go in a star pattern here.
You didn't break that one, you just tied on.
Yeah, I changed my mind that I didn't want to. I wanted to cross it up a little bit more. Okay. So you guys are at a point where we're just getting these bolts out here. I think we're. So as I draw my imaginary line around, making sure that I'm getting them all. Okay, looks like these here. Looks like we're missing some pieces.
What about that Phillips?
Nope, that is a oil level drain. Oh, remember how I couldn't find it yesterday?
Yeah.
Yesterday we were trying to figure out how to check the oil level. It's on this side. So what you do with the bike straight up and down, perfectly level. Can you see how there's a crush washer under it?
Yeah.
That's how I know it's an oil level washer. So it's interesting it's on the left side. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take, so that I don't have to think really hard when I go back together with this. Can somebody put these in here for me? This is a nice way. These cases don't come apart real easy. It takes some other special tools here. That bolt bent? Okay, now this bottom one probably is not a case bolt because it doesn't have anything to go into. I'm going to go ahead and just take it out now anyway. But this one up here is, and the way I could tell is when I take it out, do you see how it'll actually cross both case halves due to its length?
Yeah.
So that's my indicator on there. But it just makes sense to go ahead and keep all of that together right now. So once again, make sure I got all my outside left case bolts. So in here, I have only 3 inside bolts. Okay, so you guys might have 5, 6, 8, 10 bolts. Here's what I do. I take my inside bolts, I put them in their own baggie, and put it inside the left case. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm asking about that on your lab sheet here to say, what was the tip given by your instructor? Isn't that a nice way to store this and not have to overthink it to death? I do not want to lay out 25 fasteners and have to try and figure it out. I'd like to have my outside ones, my inside ones, and that at least breaks it into some smaller packaging on our storage practice. Okay?